When I think about my money and how much I've spent, how quickly I spent it, and where it all went, sometimes I regret it, sometimes I don't care. If my wife knew the value of my collection, I'd need to be in your prayers. Some men like to gamble, some men like to race, some men like to party, to drink and fall on their face. But I've been collecting knives since the time before MySpace. Some are fixed blades and I have many that fold. Some go down in value, but some appreciate like gold. There's a feeling inside, a hole in my soul. If there isn't a new knife on its way to my home, order a full custom, get on a wait list. Could be a year or three, but it's worth buying to me because of the skill of the artist. And some factory knives that you didn't know existed are rare and special, being made so limited. You think that I'm nuts and call me a hoarder or whatever, man. At least I've got something special on pre-order.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jim. It's my pleasure to be here with you again today. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at a handmade custom from Kyle Bober called the Fifth Element. Kyle Bober is Bober Blades, and he is currently out of California, San Diego to be specific. He was born and raised in Connecticut, and he's one of those fancy pants, smarty pants, I went to college type people that then decided, hey, I'm better off getting my hands dirty and creating something, doing something that follows with the passions in my life instead of just following down the path of academia and wherever that leads you to. I wouldn't know because I didn't graduate college. So, hey, what do you know? He actually has a degree in mechanical engineering and applied sciences. And you might see a little bit of where that pays off in how he makes his knives. Now, he is a part-time maker. He has a full-time, regular, everyman's job, and this is what he's been doing to satisfy himself over the last 3 years or so. Let's go ahead and get this fancy package open. I'm digging this because you've got two things that people generally like to see for packaging. These really cool watertight boxes, as well as a zippered pouch, which is what we typically see a custom knife being offered in. Inside, I guess this is the keys for this locking system that this has. And then there's a nice little handwritten thank you from Kyle on the back side of his COA card and spec listing. And it shows here the knife make and model is the custom Fifth Element. Blade material is RWL34. I'm a huge fan of RWL34. I've discussed this many times in the past. RWL34 is made by the Damasteel Corporation, so I don't want you to be confused here thinking that you're not seeing an etched blade since you're not seeing a pattern on there. It is not Damasteel. It is RWL34 made by Damasteel. And what really makes this particular build special is the fact that it is titanium liners with red camel quartz and zirconium inlays. Now there's also going to be Zirc for the back spacer. I like Zirc. I think it's awesome. It's a really nice complementary material. I just want to get straight to showing you the knife. It is cool that he does put in all this effort on a nice laminated card. And there is also his business card. There is his email if you'd like to email him with any questions. At Bober Blades, actually at Bober_Blades on Instagram, and then his website, boberblades.com. And then I believe there's also, yes, the all-important stickers. Now, let's go ahead and get this unzipped and take a look at the beauty that he has made here. Now, the first thing I'd like to make clear right away is I have been wanting one of Kyle's knives for a while now, but I was always under the impression that the knife was significantly larger. As a matter of fact, I had no idea until mine arrived that it was such a small blade. You're looking at a 3-inch blade here. This is not large at all. Now, I love it. A few years ago, I wouldn't have, because I really wasn't into the smaller knives. I was for a time, and then I fell out of that. That was more of a novelty thing at that point. And then I fell out of it, and I went back to my normal 3.5 to 3.8 inch blades as being my norm. But now, over the past 3 years, I've gotten to the point where I've really been enjoying particularly 3.25 inch blades. So this 3-inch blade, while surprising, quite shocking to me when it arrived, didn't disappoint me at all. Especially once I felt the action on this. It's simply amazing. That was the first thing that I told Kyle. Because he said, hey, do me a favor. Whether you're doing a review on this or not, please give me personal feedback. It helps my growth. It helps me understand what other people want in the knives that I'm making. And the first thing I told him was, oh my God, man, the action, it snaps open and it glides closed. Even for this little 3-inch blade that has almost no weight to it, it's very easy to get it to close under its own weight. You have to give it an extra little shake just because there is no real weight to it. As you see, it's pretty slim blade stock as well. Now, he's somebody that's always been an outdoor enthusiast. He goes hunting and fishing and hiking and camping and all that kind of good stuff. So he's always carried pocket knives ever since he was a kid. And his first ever knife was the same as mine, a buck knife. Mine was a buck 110. I don't know what his was. He just says that it was a folding hunting knife with brass bolsters. So that kind of sounds like a buck 110 to me. And he says he got into actual knife making himself as a challenge from a buddy of his. He was collecting knives, and one day his friend asked why he was buying knives, because he thought, well, you could be making your own. Because again, going back to that bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and applied sciences, this is the kind of person that you would expect can read numbers, make things according to measurements, and dial things in to a certain degree of perfection. So being able to make something like this shouldn't be too much of a challenge for his level of education and the application of that education. So he sat down and read Bob Terzola's book, Tactical Folding Knife, which I highly suggest anyone that is considering becoming a knife maker do the same, because you will get a lot of knowledge out of that book. Now, he says he didn't really have any mentors, so I'm assuming there was nobody that was living close to him at the time that could take him under their wing and kind of sit down and show him all the fundamentals. So he had to sit there and basically kind of re-engineer or reverse engineer other people's knives. Take a look at what they did and figure out for himself how they achieved that. Now, he says that he finished his first knife and brought it to Blade Show West. And there was an event there called Critique My Knife. And he sat down in front of legends like Ernest Emerson, Enrique Pena, Steve Schwartzer, and a few others who held his first knife. It wasn't the Fifth Element here. Held his knife, critiqued it, and gave him the feedback that he needed. And one of the things that he particularly enjoyed was Enrique. And I've been a friend with Enrique for a decade or so now. And I know how Enrique works. He is a truly kind and gentle soul. He really is. And Enrique was very supportive of him. And as he gave him the feedback for the knife that he was holding, he offered to stay in touch and said, hey, keep in touch with me. And as you grow, I want to kind of see what you're doing and where you're going with everything, because I think you're one of those makers that if you keep at it, we're going to watch you grow and succeed in this industry. So he was giving him positive reinforcement along with the critiques of whatever may have been not so perfect with that first knife. And he says that over time, Enrique has given him a great amount of support and has helped him through learning to get past some of the mistakes that he had to work on to get better and better and better over time. And he says that critique is what gave him the confidence and the drive to push forward with knife making. And he says it took him roughly a year after that critique session for him to feel comfortable with what he was making to start selling knives to friends and family. And that really is how most people start. They begin by making knives and either selling or giving away to friends and family. And they kind of gather that feedback from people and then go on and make those and implement those changes into knives that they plan to sell to people. And that's generally a good way to get going. Ooh, God, I love how this thing feels. Now, one of the things that I found refreshing when I started talking to Kyle about his approach to knife making is he is very, very particular on his fit and finish. So he wants very tight tolerances, and take a look between these titanium liners and that blade. There is very little room for error in there. Everything is fitted beautifully. His finish work is beautiful as well. And over time, he has reached out to other various makers to get their opinions on what they find to be important and to kind of critique him on the work that he's doing. And he went to my friend Todd Begg. And Todd, who is now the president of the Knife Makers Guild, was able to give him some valuable feedback as well. And Todd's one of those guys that has always loved to help newer makers, newer or seasoned, it doesn't matter, but he's always loved to foster that love that new makers, that excitement that they bring into the industry, help them keep from getting frustrated by guiding them. Well, okay, you've run into this problem and it seems very frustrating and you want to give up, but if you stop here and you take this route over here to come back around to it, you're going to have much better luck. It's going to be a lot easier for you. And you don't have to throw your tools across the shop and scream at your family for an hour at dinner and then never pick up any tools ever again. Because let me tell you something, man, knife making can be unbelievably frustrating. And if you don't know how to solve the problem in front of you and trying over and over and over through trial and error to fix that problem, could result in ruining the knife in your hand permanently, where you may be relying on that being finished for you to make your car payment this month or to put food on the table, whatever it may be. It's very, very scary. So when you're able to reach out to a seasoned maker that has been there and done that and doesn't shrug you off and actually gives you valuable feedback, will listen to your concerns, listen to your bitching, whining, and crying, which we all do, and then says, hey, I've been through that situation, and here's what I did to correct it in the moment, and then here's what I did to prevent myself from making that mistake again in the future. And one of the things that Todd had taught me early on was finding your workflow, defining your workflow, figuring it out. Because if you go through the same processes in the same manner on every build, you're going to be more consistent in the quality that you're putting out, and you're less likely to accidentally miss a step and then have to go back and correct a mistake because you missed a step. If you always start with point A, then point B, then point C, then point D, and always in that order, you're not going to forget point C. Whereas if you're just kind of grabbing materials and you're just throwing stuff together haphazardly in a random manner from knife to knife, it's going to be really super easy to forget to drill a hole for this and that or this or that before you heat treat. And I've done that. Oh my God, is that frustrating. Talk about costing yourself time and money when you're a fixed blade knife maker and you forget somehow, because you got tied up with other crap, you forgot to drill your holes in the tang for the scales you're going to be attaching later on. And then you go and heat treat the damn steel. Well, now you're not going to drill through it. I don't care how strong you are. It ain't going to happen, especially with the steel that I used at that particular time. So I had to send it out to Wire EDM and have them do it. I had to have them put my holes in because there was no way I was going to, with my little 10-inch drill press, there was no way I was getting through that chunk of steel. I think it may have been a 200 thou thick, nearly quarter-inch chunk of 3V. That wasn't going to happen. So it cost me time, and then it cost me money because I had to pay them like $100 to do that. EDM shops are not cheap. So yeah, that cut into the profit for that knife substantially. So it's nice to have people that have been there and done that and are willing to give you the important advice. Now, let's talk about the knife in particular. I've spent nearly 15 minutes here talking about knife making and about Kyle himself, which I feel is very, very important. You can easily see that he's big on fit and finish. I also like the fact that he didn't do a full hand rub satin blade on this. We had discussed every facet of this knife, and he basically just said, I'll work with pretty much any material. You tell me what you want. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just have fun with it. Because I know the most fun that I had making knives was when a customer said, maker's choice, use whatever you like. And then I would fire back with, okay, are there any particular colors or themes that you like? And I'll work within that. And so I had the opportunity to work with new materials if I wanted to try something out, or work with favorite materials or something like that. So that's what I did with Kyle. I said, you know what? Let's just do something crazy and fun. I'm not afraid of color. And he knew from watching a lot of my videos that I have a particular love for the 80s camo carbon. And we almost went in that direction. And he's like, you know what? I've got a real special piece of material here that I kind of want to work with on your knife. And that happened to be this red camo quartz. And he saw my reaction to a build he had done and sold off of his Instagram that it had zirconium. I went, man, that is really, really cool. And he remembered that, man. He remembered that little tiny thing. Just a little message that I sent where I said, oh, I loved those zirconium inlays. And then when he got back to me, when it was coming closer to time to schedule the build, he remembered that and he wanted to do the zirconium inlays. Now, to match that, he did a zirconium backspacer, and that adds a little bit of heft to this tiny little knife, and it feels great. Now I think, and I'm going to check my little notes here, I think that the pivot, the pivot is black stainless steel, so that is not zirconium. And then the frame screws are DLC coated titanium, and the same for the thumb studs, so they are not zirconium. The only zirconium here are these 3 inlays and the back spacer. But he's done a nice job of tying all of this together. Did a nice, beautiful, clean hand rub satin around the outside edges, nice and clean. Really nice finishes all the way around. I just think it's a gorgeous knife. And it is addicting the way that it flicks and the way that it closes. Feels wonderful. By the way, that lock disengages so smoothly, it's almost like it's not even making a connection. You can't even tell that you're removing that from the blade tang. And that is fantastic. There is no friction, so of course there's no lock stick of any sort. It's just perfectly done. You almost can't see in between the blade and the titanium frame. Every little detail is just done beautifully. Now, again, back to talking about the choice on the blade finish. He prefers the look of a belt satin blade because you've got the vertical grind lines against the horizontal lines of a hand rub flat. I felt the same way. Most of the time when the customer gave me the choice on how I was going to finish a blade, I would do this. Because of 2 things. One, I like the contrasting finishes, even though everything is still satin. It's still elegant and expensive looking. And the other thing, honestly, it's an ego thing. And I'm not saying that about Kyle. I'm saying that about me when I was doing it. Because if you're doing your final finish as a belt finish, it takes a lot of balls. You've got to know that you have incredible pressure control, that you're running clean belts, and that you're getting this beautifully consistent and smooth grind. A lot of little tiny mistakes can be covered up by doing a hand rub satin. And I always had a sense of pride when I came off the grinder and my grinds would look like this. It was a huge deal for me. So a lot of times I would do the belt satin finish as well. I also like the fact that it kind of keeps the knife looking grounded and real, more like a serious knife collector's knife that's carrying and using their knives and not just displaying the prettiest of knives. Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with a mirror polished blade. Nothing wrong with a nice niter blued mosaic Damascus or a fully polished Damasteel blade. Nothing at all, man. I'm not knocking any of that. I've owned plenty of those and loved them. But there's something about when you have that belt finish that somebody looks at it and goes, well, that's a knife that guy's probably actually living with and using. Because you could do it kind of guilt-free, right? Because it's going to be harder to notice minor surface scratches on this than if it was a hand rub satin or a mirror polish or anything else. So yeah, it's another reason I kind of like that look. So let's break this down by the individual components, shall we? So your frame here on this liner lock is all 6AL4V titanium. Blade again is RWL34. You have pivot collars going around the stainless steel black DLC pivot. The red scales that you're seeing are red camo carbon camo quartz. What that is, it is a type of carbon that is infused with layers of quartz. So it is extraordinarily expensive compared to regular carbon fiber and stuff like that. It's also extremely toxic. It's very dangerous for a knife maker to grind, cut, drill, everything. You have to wear your PPE 100% of the time. There's no, oh, I just got to touch up something real quick right back here. Let me just buzz that on the grinder real quick. I'm not going to throw my respirator on. No, I'm talking turbo cancer, man. Just keep that in mind. If you're ever going to work with this material, super dangerous to your health. Make sure you're going to the nth degree with your PPE. I believe it even acts like a ceramic where it can get into your body and start slicing up your lungs and stuff. So don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely certain, but I do remember the warnings that came along with this when the original carbo quartz came out. Zirconium, another big thing. So your 3 inlays and then that beautiful gear style backspacer all done in Zirc. Zirc is very dangerous to work with because you can set your whole damn shop on fire. He is taking orders. You can get on his books, which I'd love to be able to come out here and say. The base model designs, his base prices are around $700 to $800. The fifth element here starts at $800. A build like mine, this one's sitting here, was $1,200. So you're paying low to average custom prices with his work, which I think is fantastic. Because he didn't come out of the gate going, I think I'm doing pretty damn good. I'm going to start charging premium prices like so many other new makers have tried to do over the last 10 or 12 years. It's gotten ridiculous. Here's somebody that's been taking his time and continually leveling up and keeping his prices very much in line with that. Now, this is called the fifth element because this is the fifth knife model that he has designed and made. I love this aggressive harpoon Tanto. It's one of my favorite blade profiles. It's just aggressive and sexy all at the same time. And he's followed that through with a nice, neutral, and comfortable shape to the handle, making this a really nice knife to hold and to cut with. Now, I'll be fair, I haven't done a lot of hard use cutting with this yet. It's cut some paper. It may have cut open 4 or 5 Amazon boxes. And yesterday on trash day, I think I cut down 5 medium to large size cardboard boxes for recycling. And that's it. So nothing heavy duty or crazy. Still no marks on it. One of the things I love about RWL34 is it will take to any finish. Fine satin, no problem. Full mirror polish, no problem. No hazing, no speckling, nothing. RWL34 is amazing. It's got good edge retention. It's got great stainless properties. It is a good wear-resistant steel that could be used for an EDC knife. And a lot of people overlook it because they just don't know much about it. It's also expensive. Everything from Damasteel is expensive. That's just the way it is. So if you have a knife maker that's willing to work in RWL34 and you can afford to do it, I highly suggest it. It is a fantastic blade steel. And again, compliments to Kyle for this beautiful compound grind. He's done a minimalistic tip grind here. Sort of reminds me of Jesse Jaro's. Go back to the M75 review I did so many years ago. Not the M75. Oh my God, what was the name of that model? It was after I got my M75. It was the next one that he made for me, and I forgot the name of it now, damn it. But it was very similar to this. Instead of pulling it way back and intruding on more of the hollow grind with the flat grind, it's very minimalistic from here to here. And then it just starts to open up right up here. I love that. I think it looks very aggressive and very minimalistic as well. Super cool. Balance of the knife is really nice. I only had one little critique for him, and I'll go ahead and mention that here. The pocket clip works fine. It works great. It's got great retention and everything. It's nice and strong without being overly done. I was just mentioning to him that I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a gentle exit ramp like we have for the entry ramp here. Just so that it was less prone to snagging on the way out of the pocket, but it's not a huge deal. And I've been able to carry this just fine without really having any major complaints about it. There were just one or two times that it would snag, and I'd be like, come on, get out of there. And that was it. And if that's all I have to nitpick on a knife, you know they've done good. So anyway, so you got some cool exotic materials with the red camel quartz and the zirconium in a knife that otherwise is a fairly unassuming kind of design. It doesn't look very exotic, doesn't look crazy, but he made it just that bit more special visually with those materials to match up to how special it feels when you're using it. That flickability is just fantastic. And yes, in case you're wondering, it is very easy to slow open. You can slow roll it with the thumb studs if you want to. No problem. You can reverse flick it, all that kind of good stuff. His detent is miraculous. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave you guys on this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Even though it was a bit more long-winded than usual, I really wanted you to get a feel for Kyle, for who he is as a maker, as an individual, and see why I appreciate custom knives the way that I do. Because it really is about the soul of the knife maker in each of the knives that you get from them. You're buying into a segment of their life. If this took him, 2 weeks to make, that's 2 weeks of his life that's housed within this knife that I have in my pocket. And that's insane and pretty damn awesome. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.